So your reaction, this was a unanimous decision.
I'm unsurprised. I took criminal procedure my first year of law school, and so I understood double jeopardy. And the fact of the matter is, Mr. Smollett had gotten a plea arrangement. He fulfilled his obligations. The case was dismissed. And so the appointment of a special prosecutor, the reindictment, I knew from the very beginning that amounted to double jeopardy. And I would also say that, Dan Webb, who was the special prosecutor, is one of the preeminent legal minds in the country, um, and was the U.S. attorney for the Northern District of Illinois, worked on Iran Contra. That Dan Webb also knows criminal procedure 101. And he knew from the outset that this was double jeopardy and did it anyway.
So why do you think he went forward?
TMZ has covered this story since January 29th of 2019. It made national attention, it international attention. There was a lot of outrage locally about this. The story was, viewed as so absurd. So there were people who were frustrated by the outcome, that Mr. Smollett was allowed to do community service and forfeit his bail, and others who wanted more from that. And as a result of that outrage that we were starting to see in the community, I think the response from Mr. Webb was to forfeit what he knew was legally appropriate and appease what amounted to an angry mob.
There are really two issues here. There's a legal issue, and frankly, I agree with you. This always seemed like double jeopardy to me. And on the legal side, there should never have been a trial, but there was one. And factually, which is different, factually, there was a full trial with witnesses, and a jury unanimously convicted him, and he was sentenced to 150 days in prison, in jail. Now, knowing now what you know and seeing that process play out, do you think you were too lenient by doing 15 hours of community service and $10,000 forfeiture, given what you saw in the trial?
Not at all. What Jussie was convicted of was a disorderly conduct. And I think people have to remember that he wasn't charged or prosecuted for staging the hoax with the Osundario brothers. What he was prosecuted for, charged with, initially indicted by our office, was filing a false police report. That's what he was charged with, the filing of a false police report, which is it's our lowest level felony. It's one step above a misdemeanor. And in cases like that, generally we do a diversion. You don't get jail time if you don't have what we call a publishable background, that he didn't have a long criminal record. Most of those cases are resolved this way. What has happened, though, is because of Mr. Smollett's celebrity, we saw someone get a jail sentence that would never have been given in this type of case. And more importantly, Harvey, again, back to criminal procedure 101, our office couldn't offer Jussie a deal if we didn't believe he had done the thing of which we accused him. It's unethical for us to say, give me your bond, do community service, and we don't believe that you're guilty. We can't even enter into an agreement with you unless we believe that the evidence would support a conviction. So we weren't surprised that he was convicted. The evidence that we indicted him with was the same evidence that they used in that trial.
Why do you think he got 150 days from the judge?
If you listen to the ruling of the judge, and I've known this judge, I've seen this judge for years. I was a prosecutor in this office for 12 years. I've served as the chief prosecutor for the last 8. I've never seen someone in a class 4 felony give such a dissertation before a ruling. I mean, it was beyond the pale. It was as though we were filming this for Law and Order, airing tonight on NBC. That's not even how our system works. That is not, if you come into a courtroom in Cook County, what you saw play out in that courtroom, and the theatrics that were involved is not what happens every day. And that was, I believe, performative. It was, people were frustrated. Now we finally think that something has happened, and I'm going to do something that is beyond the pale. It was beyond the pale.
Do you feel vindicated that as your term is about to end, that the Supreme Court came back with this decision and basically said that this never should have happened, this trial?
Yeah, I mean, I said it right after Jussie was sentenced that I'd never seen anything like this, and I wrote an op-ed in our local newspaper, the Chicago Sun-Times, saying that this was a kangaroo prosecution and a circus. And so, for the last almost 3 years since he was sentenced, I have been waiting for justice to be served, and by that I mean we should not allow our criminal court systems to be contorted to fit popular opinion. The Constitution stands for a reason. And even if we disagree with the outcomes, we cannot throw out our Constitution for political purposes. And, as people are, in knots right now about what happens with the next administration coming in federally and wanting to protect our rights, that was happening on the local level. And so, yeah, 9 days before my term ends, is it feel good to be affirmed that what I knew in March of 2019? Yes. Am I sad that it's cost us millions of dollars in resources and taken away from the critical work that we do on crime and violence in Cook County? Yes, I am. But I'm grateful that the system worked out the way it was supposed to.
We're now seeing DAs running for election saying, if I'm elected, I'll prosecute so and so. This feels like a very troubling time just in terms of the responsibilities of a public prosecutor.
You're absolutely right, Harvey. I mean, it is not lost on me. I've seen some people campaigning on what I'm going to do as a prosecutor. This shouldn't be political, but it is. We run for election for these seats. And what I have been disappointed by is that we are guided by our oath to uphold the Constitution, both our state constitution and the federal constitution. And that should be our guiding principle. And as frustrated and angry and the vitriol that I received in the wake of the decision that was made with Jussie, I stand by we had a constitutional responsibility and not for me to appease the masses. And we've gotten too far adrift of that. If we stick to the fundamentals of the Constitution, and as a prosecutor, the standards say that you are a minister of justice, just do justice and not worry about the politics and the silly season that I think we find too many of us in.